Hey guys, it's Matt. If you're driving a truck, I'll read you these slides. They're text only. Now, these slides, there's just a few to come, are the most important questions we need to answer for ourselves in the history of what is called the human race. Just a few slides. How many people have addressed these issues in their lifetime over the course of millennia? Almost no one has. How many truthers have even thought them through? Almost no one has. The Christian truther or the Muslim truther or anybody that does what we do that has very closely associated themselves with one of the known religions has an advantage over the rest of us because many of the slides have already been defined per what the religion instructs. Even those in the truth community, in the circles I run in, most are not Christian. There's a large amount of Christians here, and I appreciate you being here. But in terms of me talking about recently how fogged over we are, coming into life with all senses or intuition or wisdom, intelligence all governed down, whether that was intentional or not, or the body's been manipulated, it doesn't matter. At this point, we are here. The powerful play goes on. It doesn't matter what the past is. We still have the ability to overcome no matter how much we've been governed down. We have very vague notions of these very important questions. Nothing matters but getting a defined answer to the following questions. And it's incredible. How many years has it taken to make this video? Has this even been addressed in this way? I mean, it is incredible. This is all that matters. All that matters, the following few slides. Let me jump ahead to give you an idea of what I'm talking about and the type of slides that are going to be presented. I'm sure that was a little strange coming in like, what the hell? The hell is Matt talk? It's pretty simple. Like, did you exist before birth? We need to have we're not going to ever know for sure, okay? I'm not saying, but in terms of your absolute core belief set that go down into your very bones, into your cells, into every aspect of what you call you spiritually. We are allowed, I know this belief thing, it's a bad word. We are allowed to believe. There's a lot of things in this life we're not going to know. That's kind of the nature of this whole reality experience. Most things at the grand level we're not going to know. But in terms of do we truly believe these things, I think all pursuers of truth have to have defined answers for themselves for these specific questions. And we haven't done this. Incredibly, we haven't done it. And it doesn't mean you can't change your answer as you pursue truth over the years. But just like this one, we'll get to this one. Did you exist before birth? Well, someone would say, I think so, but do we? No, this is the time right now. Get a pen and paper. Pause the video for 15 minutes if you don't have a defined answer for yourself for each question as it's presented. Don't look to the outside. Well, I'm not going to tell. I will come back and give you my belief set when we go around on the second time. I don't want to influence anybody now. I'll just say a few things. I'll be as objective as possible. And I would say trust your inner knowing. Talk to yourself right now. I demand full knowledge. I demand access to whatever you want, whatever terms you want to use. I demand access to the Akashic record, whatever Akashic records, however you want to do it. I believe, and many of us believe, the knowledge is inside of us. We've been dumbed down. We've been Beavis and buttheaded. We've been governed down. We've been fogged over. We've been fluorided. The answers are in us. Now, a Christian might say, I get my answers from the Bible. And see, that's where they have a defined answer. That's fine. But this is the time to do, Matt, I'm glad you floated these. I'll get to it next month. We never get to it. Billions of lives have gone by, billions that didn't even start to address these questions for themselves. And this is the first question. We're not here yet. I'm just showing you an example of the types of things that I'm going to present. And it's like I'm doing shame on me, Matt, shame on all of us. How have we pursued all this bullshit that we've pursued in truth? And again, we haven't addressed the most important things as per our own strong belief set. We've done this long enough. We've investigated long enough. We have a sense as to how the world works that's better than the next. It is time to come up with answers for yourself for each one of these. And that doesn't mean it's set in stone. They can be amended over time. but it can't be put off forever. Now is the time. What? Now is the time, Matt, for all good truthers to finally get an answer to these questions instead of putting it off and all the horse shit we typically investigate in the truth community? Yes, now is the time for all good truthers. Let's not put it off. I know you got a lot to see on BitChute and there's mud flood shit to investigate, but it's time to get down to brass tacks, and this is it. The following few slides are the only decisions in life that really matter. This exercise, what we're about to do now, makes 99% of all truth pursuits a complete, waste of time. It's really not 99%. It's 99.1. You can't do the, if I do the other 9, oh, you're doing 666. Oh, you dropped to 666. It's 99.8999999 for infinity. It basically makes everything we've done up for the last 10 years irrelevant, but you have to go through the bog or we wouldn't be mentally able to tackle what we're about to tackle now. Going through the bog and all that we've done, many of us for 15 years, some for 10 years, some for 5, but going through the bog is like training for the Olympics. Somebody goes to the Olympics, they don't just show up. They're just drinking Pabst Blue Ribbon and Lego My Ego, and they don't show up. They're training. We were training. Okay? The training by itself does not lead to truth. The bog is there to suck you in and actually get you involved in more BitChute videos. But if you can climb out of it, you have a unique perspective, a perspective that your cousin or your Aunt Ginny will never have. And it allows us to truly get in touch with our inner knowing to answer these questions better, as I said earlier, better than the next. I don't have any original thoughts. That was taken from the Clive Owen King Arthur, where Galahad, I think, says, I've been in this life longer than the next. So again, you might question what I'm about to say on these important slides because everything that I put forth comes from a movie. Okay, the big questions are still yet to come. Get your pen and paper. We're going to do it right now. Don't do it if you're driving. Save it. And again, we've been through the bog, and we've talked about the perspective that brings us, even though now we see, if we knew what we knew now, most of that was a waste of time. Meaning, like, all the work we did on what happened in Dealey Plaza, what exactly happened to the Titanic, all a waste of time, but cumulatively, all the work we put in, very important in forming our perspective now. So here, one last time, you've heard me say this before, so I'll be quick with the slide. The only truth pursuits that matter, especially now, are ones that tell you something about yourself, and those types of pursuits which can help answer the following questions. So, you've heard me say, we're going to look into mud flood now. What does that do in terms of telling you about yourself? But looking into another aspect of truth, even some may call this screen, it still may tell you a little bit about yourself because we come to hear Tommy, right? The deaf, dumb, and blind kid. Sometimes we have to look to the screen to tell us about ourselves. And if anybody's new, meaning, why is it always trying to suck my energy? Well, if it's trying to suck my energy, it tells me I'm a pretty powerful entity, doesn't it? So the pursuit of truth, if we go back to BitChute, the only thing that's relevant is the BitChute video that we're about to go back to, giving us any little help in answering the big questions that are about to come. Okay, Matt, get to it, for crying out loud. I'm a long-haul trucker. I'll be halfway to the Rockies before you start this horse shit. Number 1, did you exist before birth? Now, I'm not going to give you my answers. I'll come back and tell you what I believe at the end. But I will share some perspective on how to perhaps look at each question. Matt, this is pretty simple. Yeah, the other questions are not quite as simple. And again, a Christian has, the way I'm putting it, an advantage. Okay, and obviously, I don't mean that exactly as it's coming across, but a lot of this will be predefined for a Christian if they're putting their faith in Jesus Christ and the New Testament or the Bible, for example. It will be defined for them. So if you're not, the idea here, guys, is to shut this off and literally talk to yourself. Get into and say, all the information is inside of me because we've been Beavis and Buttheaded. Okay, have you ever asked, never ask the ether for something, okay, who knows what entity could show up. I am completely against that, but asking yourself, your spiritual self that knows the answer, what do you feel the answer is? Will we ever know for sure? No, we won't ever know 100% for sure. There's nothing wrong with that. I'll give you mine. What do you think mine's going to be? You think Matt's going to come forth and say, no, I don't believe I existed? You've heard me say a million times, a timeless entity always will be, always has been. You know my answer on this one. So, but do I know that 100%? Of course not. There's nothing wrong to say I truly believe that. This word believe is a bad word now. It's not. It's not a bad word. So shut it off if you have to, and and by the way, your inner knowing or your ability to access it will be improved like training at the end of this video than even in the beginning if you haven't done these sorts of things. We have all different types here in the Hamish classroom. And one last bit of advice before we really begin, although we're already started with question 1. Please don't default to your logical mind. Somebody take out in the pad and paper, well, let's see what the odds are, and statistically, if I existed before birth, does that translate into the current population? Never use the logical mind or the ego mind or what some say the left brain, or forget the brain altogether. It's called gut feeling for a reason. In your gut, the answer's got to come from somewhere else. If it's coming from the logical mind, dude, that ain't good. I mean, with the old guard's going, yeah, Matt, we know this, but for the newbie, don't think it through logically, for crying out loud. If you got to go outside and listen to bird signs or whatever to give you the answer, that's more effective than figuring these questions out logically, for crying out. With that puppet of the system, our logical minds are all bowing down for the system. They're all crying out, Lego my ego. Number 2. But did you answer number 1? Did you write it down? I'll do it later. No, answer it. Now is the time. I mean, when is the time? If you're driving long haul trucking, not now for you. If you're on a forklift, you don't want to drive that forklift through some old lady's car. It's not time for you. I don't have to give little safety tips. We're tired of all that fine print on these damn commercials, but you know what I mean. 2. Do you believe that the greatest spiritual truths, which will provide the answers to the slides that will come, are inside you, or do you need to search outside yourself for these answers? Okay, Christian, there's Muslims here, there's Buddhists here, there's different types of religions. I'll default to Christianity because that's what I understand. I wasn't raised in a Catholic church, but I was brought into a Catholic church on and off for many, many years as a kid. Very Catholic, from Washington, D.C. all the way up through Boston. I'm outside of Philadelphia. So the Christian would get their guidance from the Bible and the teachings of Jesus. So I personally, I'm not, well, look, I'll give you what I believe. If it's so obvious what I believe, I guess I'll just say it. I believe the greatest spiritual truths are inside me. I am going to tell myself. I'm not going to look to one book, one emerald tablet. I'm not going to look to one Georgia Guidestone. I'm not going to look to anything outside myself to answer the questions that follow. Where a Christian obviously would look to the Bible for guidance. You understand what I'm saying? Do you believe you will exist after death? Number 3. We don't need to spend a lot of time here. Not too many atheists come and frequent this channel. Don't have a lot in common with the atheist. What's that movie? It says, guilty with the stories, or, that's Step Brothers. Not a lot in common with the atheists. We all believe we will exist after death. I don't think you'd be here at this channel. Let's just move on. Matt, this is easy, man. No, it gets harder, and you're really going to have to get in touch with your inner knowing to answer going forward. Number 4, do you believe the whole of you is inside Earth, or is a part of you outside of this place, earthly realm, Earth reality system, Earth snow globe? So real quick for anybody that's new, traditionally, going back through time immemorial, no matter what the religious belief is, the soul is in the body, the soul leaves the body. Many people, I would think most people, although I haven't sampled every one of them with a Gallup poll, that the soul is contained in the body. I think that is the more traditional belief, or the soul or the spirit. We're not going to differentiate between them for the purpose of this slide presentation. Where, you know what I believe here, so maybe we will do this combined. But you've heard me talk many times that I believe more in the higher self concept, which means a spiritual part of my whole is not here in this snow globe, is not in the body. The whole of me is not in the body. So I don't know exactly how a Christian would interpret this one, but it doesn't matter. Just these are not even for your own personal beliefs here. I don't even think it's appropriate to comment. This is a personal questionnaire that should go on your personal pad and paper that you shouldn't leave on your work blotter in the office, or people will think you're a lunatic. Take it with you. Make sure you keep it in a safe place, and then amend the questions or your answers as you do more research. Or if anything, if you struggle with any of these, your inner knowing will eventually make it clear to you. Maybe it'll take a month or two. But if you work on the problem, or you really want to know something, I think eventually it will come to you. All right, I guess I'm going to amend what I said earlier. I will, at the end, I guess, of this slide, give you my personal beliefs, only because I'm realizing anybody that's been here for a little while, have heard me say these things hundreds and hundreds of times. You know my beliefs on this anyway. And again, was that Matt's deception? Am I really going to influence you? Come on. There's some lunatic. I'm good at presenting things in a way people can understand, but I'm a lunatic that just talks about movies or presents movie lines. I shouldn't have any influence on you in this regard. I'm asking you to look to your inner knowing. It doesn't matter what my horseshit belief stance is on it, so we're going to do this combined. Tony, who gives me good information in these types of areas, has helped me refine my belief set in this area. I've always felt the whole of me is not here. I've always felt that. But he is more well-versed in the concept of the higher self, and you, this is my current belief set, you being a part of this spiritual whole here in this reality system to do the work here on behalf of your spiritual whole, or a part of you that's not here. Question 5. Per question 3, where we just asked, do you believe you will exist after death? After death, will you still be you, in your opinion, or will you be something else? For example, will you still know of yourself as the individual? Will you be you? Will you meld back into your higher self? Or the Matt that I recognize now with this set of conscious beliefs will blend into something else? I don't really know. When I wrote this out, some of these questions, it was like shame on Matt, because I would like, how long have I done this? And I don't have a really rock solid belief set for a few of these questions. I need to work on this. But you understand what I'm saying. I mean, I'm not overly familiar with how every Christian would interpret this, but I would believe, heaven or hell, or you maintain individual status. That is not the case with everybody's belief set. So just some examples. It is something to think about. At death, I'm not saying you're going to have a spiritual body that looks like you or anything like that, but will you still be an individual? Or will you merge with something else or become part of a greater whole? That's what's trying to be conveyed in number 5. Obviously, as I said, everybody here believes we exist after the mortal death as it's defined by this reality. I mean, everybody here believes that, of course, or you wouldn't be here. Number 6 is a big point of contention the last 3 to 5 years in our community. Big argument with many. Were you tricked to come here to this place called Earth? Okay, this of course assumes you answer the first question. Did you exist before birth, before you incarnated here? Again, not a stretch to say most people here probably believe they did, but this is related to that. Okay, you incarnated here, relates to first conversation, afterlife, or more specifically, the last conversation before you incarnated that I presented a few months back. The last conversation before incarnation was closer to my belief set, like I said, than the first conversation after a, quote, failed life was more of just fun fiction to get you thinking about all the ways this reality system gives itself away for real people to notice. So, a lot of people, you've heard it, you've heard all the stories. Oh, they've got this reality hijacked. You were tricked to come in here. If you believe you were tricked to come in here, that usually goes along with the tricks at death, and we'll get to that. To return back into a body. Is that what the Tibetan Book of the Dead is, and the Bardos and all this shit? So, again, Don't forget, the most important thing I'm asking you to do is to not listen to me, to stop and just think in a quiet room, 5, 10 minutes even. Do I believe? Okay, you might say I absolutely existed before this incarnation, but was I tricked? Think about it. Was I really think on it and not with the logical mind, as I said? Let the inner knowing just come forth. I'm going to return to this one at the end regarding my personal beliefs and how this has been raised a lot in the whole truth community. Tricks at death, also trick to come in. I think they go hand in hand for the most part in terms of in terms of how they're presented. I don't want to give too much of my own personal belief set away. I'll come back to this at the end. Question 7. Do you believe how you live your life now matters in the afterlife? Well, this is, are you a good person, a bad person? I don't know why I said live your life now. Right now, I'm just talking about collectively. Were you a good person or a bad person? Many people saying, well, of course it matters. It's how you live your life. It's not so clear cut. Even from a Christian perspective, it is not clear cut. The hardcore John 3:16 evangelical Christian, you can be a mass murderer, and in the last year of your life, give yourself to Jesus Christ per John 3:16, and you are forgiven. You are born again. This is not as clear cut as some may think. But what mostly this is referring to, this is mostly the consequences versus no consequences debate that I've presented several times. The no consequences people, the Alan Watts type people. They'd say, you're here to, you came here to have an experience as an immortal being. This is the Alan Watts types would say, this is not an experience you can have in your spiritual life. There's things that happen here that won't go, anywhere, that don't happen anywhere else. Like Matt, you're grieving for Bootsy or, whatever it may be, certain emotions, they just don't exist, some may say. But there's no chance you're going to, most of these types of people would say, it doesn't matter how you live your life. You don't have to just help the homeless versus join Tony Soprano's gang. It doesn't matter. You're spiritually protected, these people would say. You're not going to be tricked after death. You weren't tricked to come here. It's just an experience. Now I'm representing, that's not my belief set exactly. I take pieces from their tenets. Is that the right word? It doesn't matter. Take pieces of that I've applied to my own belief set. And I'm more about, you should really, again, you shouldn't even listen to me before pausing to answer these for yourself, or what at least your inner knowing tells you from an instinctual level. If you've never thought about it, what's your first reaction that you'd write down before listening to a jackass like me? But I'm more about doing the work, not the good person, bad person, as much as the wasted life. Okay, for whatever reason, agreed to be here. There's things to do here. It's not just about getting jacked off under a fruit tree, like I've said. There's work, like baggage that needs to be dropped. It's not just about experiences that we can have here. There's work to do in this very difficult place, and lessons that will carry forth. So to me, it's not like good person, bad person. I'm a little bit would push back on the no consequences people by saying, well, if you're here for a reason, not just to experience smells and sensory experiences, that's my take. Then if you don't do the work, almost by definition, there'd be a consequence of some kind for not doing the work or not putting the work in. And they always rush right to the hardcore definition, like consequence of recycle back into a body or a consequence of hell. I didn't say that, just a consequence. If you didn't do what you're supposed to do here and your immortal self doesn't carry that knowledge forth, then by definition, that's a consequence. It doesn't mean hell or punishment or anything like that. It's not a big deal, but if I decide to sit here too long and watch BitChute, and I don't, it's a bad example, but my legs turn a little numb. That's a consequence by definition. Okay, that's my take, but this is a really important one that we have to absolutely get a defined sense on way before we're about to die. And, again, most people go through life in the fog, never even if they are religious in a certain sense, most people down the cul-de-sac don't address these at all. Number 8, do you believe that a God is needed to take you out of here, or to get you from the earth system to heaven, or to where you're supposed to be after death? Do you need a God to accomplish that? Or is the power in you now? Or must your power be derived from someone or something else? And, yes, I have to say a God. There are over 1 billion Buddhists in this world, Christians. There are close to 1 billion Hindus. There are close to 1 billion Muslims. It's not just about Christianity. I have to word it as such, whatever your religious belief. But all those religion. I'm not an expert on Buddhism, but generally religion requires a God. I don't think I'm really pushing it, saying that. Generally, it's not on your own. Religion requires a God, a savior of some kind. What does your inner knowing tell you? Not what you think you're supposed to write down. The whole point of this exercise is to really have the answer bubble up, even if it's in contrast to everything you think you believe for your entire life. That is the purpose here. Is there anybody listening to the words that are coming out of my mouth that are going to have a certain conduit or breakthrough to their inner knowing that they haven't had before? That's the purpose here. Not to just make sure you write down exactly what you think you believe. That's not the point. You understand? Okay, some of the inner knowing here could be in contrast to what you think you believe. So, guys, my take on this. Muslims have Muhammad or Jesus, Bodhisattvas and Vishnu. I don't know those people. My inner knowing tells me the power is in me, and it's up to me to do certain things, not to look outside myself. I'm not trying to piss anybody off here, but it's just simple second-grade fact. An evangelical Christian does not have, from their perspective, doesn't have any power. Complete savior from the evangelical Christian perspective is solely through Jesus Christ. There's no power on their own. It's not blasphemy. This is very clear in their position, right? That does not sit right with me. You understand my position. And there's a lot of different takes on this, of course, all over the world. The point is to make sure you closely listen to what your inner knowing tells you, and also, I should have stressed this many times, that your ego or what your logical mind wants is maybe not what your inner knowing is telling you. The logical mind, what it wants or what it pursues is not always what's best for the whole of us. They're two completely different things, if you know what I mean. Of course they are. Many would say the ego, the logical mind, the frontal lobes, the part of the brain that thinks in English, along with the body, serves this place. And who is the master of this place? Okay, that's not really a stretch. So you could be having an argument between inner knowing and logical mind for many of these, because logical mind serves itself for the most part. Number 9, do you believe that your beliefs or what you expect to happen influences or creates, manifests what happens to you at death? We've talked about this one on and off recently. Your whole reality is set up to get you to believe there's all these tricks and traps at death. You expect tricks and traps at death. Well, you maybe just manifested that on yourself. A Christian wouldn't say, I believe I'm going to be with my relatives, my pets, my other Christians, Jesus Christ, whatever. They believe that, and that is what they believe will happen to them at death. Others will say they will be with Jesus Christ, but others would come along and say, because you believe that at death, you will manifest that. It's coming from a different place than where you think. Others would say, just, again, not trying to piss anybody off here, they're just all positions on the table. Because I see how hard they work, these creeps work. Not just for that reason, but that's what really got me noticing. I do believe that the mindset we take into death and what we expect to happen absolutely can manifest. Or you might not be able to get to where you need to go. Or you might trap yourself, or what. I don't understand. I don't fly astrally like Don Juan and shit like that. I don't know what's on the other side of the astral plane and all that shit. But in other words, if you it's the white light, go into the light, don't go into the light debate. If you've spent years worrying about going to the light or not going to the light, and you don't think you're going to take that into death, and that might not manifest on you, if that's the case, we need to start working on that now. And it's not like, yeah, Matt, I need to beat that out of my system. I need that doubt of going to the light or not going to the light, or search for Wes Penray's grid out of here. All that, I need to beat that out of me. No. You don't need to beat it out of you. That's not. This isn't a session where we just do rote mantras to beat something out of us. The idea is to let we have the information. I believe this. I mean, don't you believe it? The information is available to us, whether you call it inside you or however you want to say it. The idea is to let what we already know come forth, not to beat out a belief set like, yeah, I got to stop thinking about traps. And don't forget the point here. To maybe somebody's inner knowing is like a squeezed off prostate. It's like the guy that somebody I know gets up, you get up 2 a.m, you get up 4 a.m, it's like the squeezed off prostate. You got to open it up. You got to flow max that shit. You got to open up the third eye and inner knowing. As we practice this, might not happen right now for you, but we will get better at it doing these sorts of exercises. It's like the remote viewers say, "Oh, you need to practice this for remote viewing." And on these books I'm reading now, I don't know my take is on this remote viewing external stuff. This book by Targ I'm reading now, I don't have a take on it yet. I need more information, but I believe internal remote viewing is real. I really do. Reading the Matrix Code Perception, and then once it starts, some of you it's already flowing, of course, or the old guard, where others, it's a squeezed off prostate. It takes time. This is an exercise. Eventually it will start to flow. This is related, of course, but put a little bit different. It is based off the prior question. Do you believe there is a trick coming at the moment of death? If you believe in reincarnation, do you believe there is a way to avoid another life in another body, if that's truly what you want? So it is based off the prior. All right. Now, if you truly believe what you manifest, you can manifest what you take into the moment of death, then if there's a trick coming, will you manifest it, or you help facilitate it or create it? If you believe there's a trick coming at the moment of death, then we already know your answer to the prior question. What you take in terms of a mindset into death doesn't matter, because they're waiting for your ass. It doesn't matter. So they're related, but I thought it was worth making a different slide. Let's just look at the last part. If you believe in reincarnation, do you believe there is a way to avoid another life in another body? So the big reincarnation religions, from my understanding, Buddhism and Hinduism, you've heard me say a million times. I don't know if I read this at a book about Buddhism or where I got this, but I've mentioned it many times and nobody's come forth and said, no, Matt, that's not what Buddhists believe. But Buddhists would say you pass a woman in the mall or wherever, and that woman has been your mother or will be your mother. That's how many lives many Buddhists expect to have, or reincarnations. And if that's been your belief set your entire life, go back to the prior 2 questions or so. That's been what you've been told, and it's been ingrained in you. Well, are you gonna you have what chance do you have? What chance do you have? We've talked about this a lot in the past. You will manifest this right back on yourself. And if you believe in reincarnation, like Buddhism or Hinduism in India, do you have a defined way out? I'm no expert at this. Tell me if I'm wrong. But becoming bodhisattva, and does anybody, people are going to know they went to the damn Union Carbide factory their whole life, barely got enough money to raise their kids, had also, broke down and had those moments where they weren't such a good person. They're gonna know they weren't no bodhisattva. They didn't achieve that. So it's almost like they're ingraining, if this manifestation of what you take through the moment of death is real, what do Hindus and Buddhists, how do they have a chance? I mean, they don't, right? Unless there's what is your defined way out? From a Hindu or a Buddhist perspective, I mean, how many go into their death or approach their death saying, well, this might be incorrect, but this is absolutely my strategy to not come back into another body. Do they do that? I mean, I doubt it, right? How do you overcome a belief set that's so strong that reincarnation is almost assured? From a Buddhist perspective, I mean, what lifestyle that could exist in 2022 would, facilitate enlightenment where you can avoid samsara? Whether samsara is applied to Buddhism or Hinduism, you understand the point I'm making. You worked at the damn Foxconn factory. You didn't go up and try to jump into the nets. But you're going to think, nobody's in that situation going to think, yeah, I did enough. I did enough. I was enlightened. Putting this plastic part on in the factory floor here, and I didn't use the nets, so I was really enlightened. Oh, man, look how hard this system works through its religions to get people to absolutely, in my opinion, take the wrong attitude into the moment of death. Question 11. Should the questions being posed here, asked on these slides, should your answers be decided for you, or should you decide these answers for yourself? Well, many people are raising up out of the bathwater. Well, of course, we're here to decide them for ourselves. Not necessarily. A religion will decide these for you. Okay, that it's not that clear cut. If it's clear cut for you, it's clear cut for you. But settle back down under the bathwater. Turn the hot back on. We're not quite done here. Most of these questions are given to a Christian via the Bible. It's not all about of course, there's different interpretations of what gospel is saying what and what gospel is saying this, and that could sometimes get a little confusing. But are you looking to an outside source, or are you looking to your inner knowing to answer all of these questions? Okay, let's return to this slide for a moment. I have more slides coming that we can have a lot more fun with, that a lot more like screen analysis or what people pursue on BitChute and all that in terms of applying, hopefully, the rules that we've learned over time and the rules that have been hopefully cemented over the course of this video via these slides. So, but this is the basic reminder. I've said this many times, relates to the slides coming up. The only truth pursuits that matter are ones that tell you something about yourself, and those which can help answer the big questions that were in the slides. So once you have defined answers to everything presented in these slides, did you exist before being born? And you've written them out, and they're in line with what you would call your inner knowing or your religious beliefs. When they're rock solid, then we return to this, okay? In terms of what is a true screen exercise? What is the bog? Is it worth looking at something on BitChute on its own? Well, if that is your hobby and it's fun, that's another thing, because we all still have to have fun if it's your hobby. Some people, look at Mike's Sage of Quay, and they might not think if that's the real Paul or not. That might not be the most important thing of all time, but it's fun for some people, and it's interesting and it's exciting. And if you take it like that, we talked about there's it's not as trivial as it seems in terms of them using Paul to usher in their creepy new age and all that. It's more important from a creep perspective, but again, all of the pursuit of truth, at least once you have the answers to these slides defined, and you've done the work that we have done, almost all of us here, which is called the bog, over 10 years, then there is no pursuit of truth worth looking at that does not tell you about yourself. Here are some examples if what I'm saying is not clear. Only made 4 of these. I could have made 400 or 50,000, but you'll get the point as we move through these 4. Waste of time. Sample, truth, pursuit. What exactly happened on board the Titanic or to the Titanic? Well, Matt, you had a whole section on your book on this. Yeah, I did. Thanks for pointing it out. I wouldn't do it again, but I was in the bog. It was necessary to go through the bog. But in terms of if you have defined answers to all those important slides that we just looked at, what exactly happened on the Titanic? And should I watch videos on it and pursue it? 100% a waste of time. You could figure it out. What does it do for you in your life experience in terms of answering the only questions that are important as posed on those slides? It doesn't do a damn thing for you. Then Matt, why did you go through it? Why did we all go through it? Because it helped us see the nature of the general trick, the master trick that the creeps perform. It's all related to the life distraction. Once we backed up far enough to look down at it and say, well, it wanted me to suck me in here. It wanted me thinking it was about the Fed. It wanted me thinking it was about the insurance money. It got me down into the weeds. It's part of going through the bog and understanding the master trick, that reality, the dark part or the overlaid part of reality lays down on real souls here. A trick that is a billion times larger than what people can pull off. Matt, don't you know it's the Council on Foreign Relations? If you have people in the truth community like literally still doing that, or it's this secret society or this group of men pulling, give me a break. The trick is so massive, so across the board, you know what I'm going to say? No real effing world could pull this off. All right, this one is not a waste of time. Let's go to the other end of the sliding scale. Here's another sample truth pursuit, things we've been involved in and will continue to be involved in. It's also fun to analyze who Melvin P. is. Do you believe the creeps are playing a role here, a defined role, as it was laid down by whoever created this reality system? Or have they successfully hijacked the Earth system? Less filling, no, tastes great. I mean, we just go back and forth in the truth community on this one. People come forth and say, no, Matt, it's completely hijacked. They've run amok. This is not what the earth was intended. This is not what was intended for real souls and spirits. The Bible even said the God of this world is Satan. They're Satanists, and it's completely hijacked and not what was meant to be. And then you have the taste great crowd. Less filling, taste great. No, the creeps are playing a role we've all benefited from as we go through our spiritual progression. So these people continue to say, the proof's in the pudding, Matt. Would you be where you are today if these things didn't happen? Wasn't the 7-Eleven job application that got you looking down a certain path and it was dark as it was? You would say you've improved as what they call us, a human being. So this goes back and forth. And see, okay, I'm not saying that there's a right answer on either side of the back and forth, although my belief. My belief is they're absolute role players. But that's not the point here. The point here is whatever you believe the role to be, it's targeting us. And as how hard they work tells you how powerful you are. If you analyze the creeps, and again, that same stuff Mike was doing, trying to set up the next age so it benefits them, the age of Aquarius, the age of Osiris, or whatever it is. They're always doing creepy things in their creepy ways and using just methodologies that are just weird to us that we deep down go, we don't need to do that. We generate our own power. What is all that horse shit they're doing, all these weird ass rituals? Well, okay, maybe they are somebody screaming out, rising above the bubbles. They're doing it for themselves because they have to stay in power, or maybe they're tied in to this realm. As long as the realm exists, they will exist. All that stuff is possible. But in terms of all the stuff they do to access your energy, it's not a waste of time like pursuing the Titanic, because this pursuit at least tells you something about yourself. If you already know it, then it's kind of a wasted pursuit. But we don't, we're at different stages. We might have to have certain beliefs about ourselves confirmed. And how hard these creeps work confirms a whole lot of things. Next one, sample truth pursuit. Oh no, the mud flood. Don't read ahead if you don't mind. We need to get to that in a little. Don't read ahead if you don't mind. Complete waste of time. Matt, okay, it's got to tell you a little bit about yourself, only if you're in the middle of going through the bog. And again, when we went through the bog, we looked at 10,000 tricks, 10,000 false presentations. And it only works when you go through all that if you can step out of the mud and look back at it. And if going through mud flood, Matt, for somebody going through mud flood is like going through your bibby, all that stuff you went through. This is somebody's Sandra D from Greece. Sandy. This is somebody's Sandra D from Greece. Okay, but do they get caught up there? Do they kind of stay there? See, again, it's on its own, without taking the hot air balloon up. It's a complete waste of time. It's part of the general reality distraction. Of course, if you pursue this, all the clues will come forth. That's what reality does. That's its trick. No real world could pull all this shit off, because look at all the side branches it leads to. We'll do the reading now. Look at all the branches and all the side waste of times it leads to. So, okay, we do mud flood, but wait. How did it happen? When did it happen? How did they cover it up? You could do 10 years of research. How do you think they covered it up so successfully? Because some would say it just happened 150 or 130 or 170 years ago. If that's the case, my great-grandmother was born in 1890, and she held me as a baby. I was told, there's one picture of her holding me as a baby in 1970. How come my great-grandmother didn't tell my whole family about this? Because her mother would have experienced it. How'd that work? When's the next mud flood or great catastrophe cataclysm going to be? How do I survive it? So we do all those. Oh, the end of the world didn't come for solstice, did it? There's been people predicted the end of the world come in winter solstice. Predicted year after year after year after year, 5 years, 6, 7 years in a row. Never comes the end of the world coming at solstice. They predicted that. What does the government know about mud flood? Did the creeps cause it? Can they cause it? And why don't the aliens from the Pleiades come in? Do you see the side branches that it's masterful at getting you caught up in if you are in this sort of bog? Okay, at this point, I would do whatever you want if it's your hobby, but I would suggest pursuits of truth that tell us at least a little bit about ourselves. Well, Matt, what does the magenta tell us about ourselves? Okay, I could come up with an answer on that, okay, and it has to do with strengthening our armor, like I said, but I don't want to jump back into those weeds. Sometimes even I get a little bit deep into the weaves, but like I said, I can't present the same half page every goddamn video. Let's try this one. Sample truth pursuit. Do you believe everyone here, as they walk around in a body seemingly the same as everybody else, do you believe everybody's the same as you are spiritually, related to the way you answered the questions posed on earlier slides? So, for example, if you believe the NPC is real, if you believe in the concept of NPC, then your answer here is clear. They likely didn't exist before being born, or they're not the same as you spiritually. Well, Matt, this one's a waste of time. No, this is not a waste of time, in my opinion, because it very easily can tell you a little bit about yourself, no matter what you believe about the NPC. Or if there are background characters here, organic portals here, or certain individuals here that didn't exist before being born, or potentially won't exist after death. So it still tells you if there are different classes of individual here, then that doesn't tell you about yourself or draw forth an inner knowing that, well, then if we were all NPCs, we'd all be screwed. We'd all be screwed, the atheist position. But if there are different types of people here, then doesn't your inner knowing say that you're one of those that, are the ones that were here before birth and will be here after death, always has been, always will be? If they're different types, then somebody's going to be in that classification, most likely. And what does your inner knowing tell you about who you are? In terms of people that aren't the same type of incarnated entity that we are, whatever you want to call them, they're just not going to be interested in this sort of conversation, in my opinion. My friend Tony, he would think this is the biggest bunch of horse shit, waste of time, and he would, if he could move in some way to contact a family member, he would try to potentially have me committed, my own friend. They're never going to give a shit about this sort of discussion. Okay, Tony would agree. You see, only the highest level of incarnation that's willing to go farther than the Melvin P types or the different types of incarnations. The creeps are not the same spiritually as you are, Tony would say. Only that type is going to search for these highest truths and be very interested in the topic. Whether it be this topic or the Mandela effect or whatever it may be, you talk to the NPC type and they give you the same rote or parroted back responses. Well, Matt, even if that's true, I've still got to get up and go to work tomorrow. Even if that's true, how does that help me put bacon on the table? That it's always brought back and into the reality. They don't, because they can't see themselves as a timeless being where this reality is just a little tiny train stop, because it's not for them. It's the whole damn stop. The stop is everything. For us, it's a tiny train stop. We see that. We feel it. Maybe you don't feel it if your inner knowing is squeezed off like a 100-year-old prostate. But for when it flows, you feel it. That this is just part of the experience, more like the touchy-feely Alan Watts stuff. So somebody like, my friend Pam or whatever, like, Matt, stop talking about that. And even if it's right, that don't help me in the morning. I got to get up and get on a train, whatever. Because, okay, well, maybe they don't. I don't want to, I'm not out to doom anybody, but maybe they don't have another go around on the merry-go-round, maybe this train stop is everything to them. So these types of pursuits and discussions don't mean anything to them because they sense deep down it doesn't mean anything to them as it does to us. So this picture here is the famous Matt Lauer, just seconds, likely 1 minute after the event, the submission of the 7-Eleven part-time job application submitted to 7-Eleven in 2001, where he said, we're getting word something is going on, a news event is going on at the World Trade Center. Do we have it? No, we're going to go to break. We don't have it. He raised a finger and gave probably a hand symbol. So there's nothing more fascinating to me than what the news was. We have to look at that again. I don't think you can look at it enough. Maybe on Free Voice, that the news, every time I look at the news that was being presented before the 7-Eleven part-time job application, there are more and more things that come up. It's so fascinating. But even after, you think, okay, this Matt Lauer, well, Matt, he's a creep and a minion. Not necessarily. I don't want to have an hour back-end discussion here about Matt Lauer, but I think there's a lot of real people that they just become slaves to this reality system, their ego mind, the 7 deadly sins, the lower chakras. And that could be, at one point, real boy, real girl Pinocchio, just like you, that's becoming a golem or becoming a wooden figure because they were as real as you and me, potentially. And I'm just using Matt Lauer as his example. He could be as fake as a doorknob. I don't know. But I'm just using him as an example where I think there's a lot of real people that get caught up in this not-nilk system and its pursuits and what it says you should strive for and its rewards. And I don't, does that truly turn real boy, real girl Pinocchio into wood? But, it's just a way of saying something. Doesn't necessarily mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm not, I'm decent at reading the Matrix Code, as I've said, and part of reading the Matrix Code is getting a sense as to if these are, people that are caught up in the system or they're true minions, like Tony talks about, this different type of incarnation. He calls them sequential incarnations. That is, that here they're big fish in a small pond. They're not nearly as progressed spiritually as you are or as I are, and you just get a sense for these types, like a Melvin P. I mean, come on, like a Santa Claus. There's still the holiday season. A Santa Claus Schwab. They're like literally like Dr. Evil caricatures. A Jeff Bezos, $1 million for Amazon. Jeff Bezos, $1 million isn't a lot anymore. 100 billion for Amazon. There are these different. Matt Lauer, maybe he's real boy Pinocchio just got. Once you go too far into the dragon's wing, some of these people are, I think, the same types of incarnations that we are, and they just get too far into the dragon's wing. And what does that mean for them at death? And again, I think these are fun topics to talk about, but they do, in a way, also, they do tell us about ourselves. I don't think this type of topic is a waste of time. The Titanic is a waste of time on its own. It only becomes relevant as part 1,000 things swimming around the bog, the moment the bog, you step out of it and look back at it. Okay, a note here to return to number 6 and give you a little bit more of my take. Do you believe you were tricked to come here to this place called Earth? Were you tricked into your incarnation? When I presented, which is very close to my belief set, the last conversation before you were born, or the last conversation before you incarnated, maybe a month and a half or 2 months ago, I presented that. I had to present the spiritual guide. People were like, Matt, people got all bent out of shape. I can't have somebody talking to themselves. I had to present the spiritual guide, so it worked. So it worked as a story or something I could read. The spiritual guide could be your higher self or related to your God or religion. I needed, two people need to talk back and forth, or there's nothing to really present. You understand? You ever just open a book, get a book, and there's nothing there because it's just a guy thinking and you can't read anything. So it had to be presented that way, but that is more along the lines of my belief set. The one, again, Tony, I don't know if I said it earlier, but he stressed the one thing he says, Matt, if you remember one thing from anything that I impress on you, and he's like, I understand, you're not going to just bow down to everything I say, only what Tony says that resonates with my inner knowing or what I already believed. He has changed my mind on a few things. But he said, one thing to remember, above all else, you agreed, as an aspect of your higher self, you agreed to come here. Now, I believe that. But all this stuff, I know in the truth community, we were tricked. Just from a common sense perspective, if I could just take a podium here as part of the great debaters and just present how I think it's kind of ridiculous to say we were tricked and now we're trapped. So let me just take the podium and present the side of, it's ridiculous in my opinion to say we were tricked to come here. Okay. Now, most people in getting into this debate, we do believe we existed before birth and we are immortal, timeless spirit that will exist after this reality experience. We were tricked to come here, and now it's a big David Icke recycling trap. Okay, it assumes some of these same people will say, well, yeah, you were a powerful spiritual being before incarnating. Well, how did you get tricked to come in here then? Okay, let's just say it's possible. And we don't know what happened, right? Maybe they got the 3-card Monte game there. They got the shell game there too. We got tricked. Okay. But we didn't have any friends, any associates, any other spiritual beings that weren't incarnating, anything that you would call a higher spiritual being or your higher self or God. We just had nobody. We knew nobody. So if we were tricked to come here, didn't we have something we were associated with, our higher self or others, or that would say, hey, all these people, Matt just went into the Earth system and they all got trapped. They wouldn't work to help to get us out. I mean, look at how pathetic the power structure is here. The Melvin P's, the Santa Claus Schwabs, the George W. Bushes, the fake truthers like Russell Brand and the Bezoses, the 1 billion. I mean, how pathetic the power structure here is. But an entity that could trap real souls here, and it's just a trick, they're going to put forth that joke ass power structure that just is just a complete comedic relief. I mean, give me a break. Why would it have to give away all these tips and tricks as to the true nature of yourself and this place and the incarnation? If we were tricked here, there wouldn't be thousands of things that work in our favor. And there are thousands of things. Even goddamn every time you turn around and listen to a song, it's giving you a spiritual message. Mistakes on purpose. I went away for a second. Zara stepped on the damn mouse. Mistakes, maybe that's telling you something. Mistakes on purpose. It's like there's some contract. They got to lay down this absurdity, this ridiculousness. Of course, most of these things are mistakes on purpose. Matt, they just mock. Oh, they don't care anymore. They don't. Oh, sure. Yeah, they just had to leave an inflated tire. It's mistakes on purpose. This power system is serving something, a role. That does not line up with we were tricked by some really hardcore pipe-hitting entity. Once we got in here, if we were tricked, I mean, it just doesn't line up with common sense. And we have nobody on the outside that's gonna talk to the creators of the realm to say these people are trapped in their trick. Gotta help them out. Does anybody think the Santa Claus Schwabs and the 1 billions and those types of people were the creators of the realm? That's like throwing a Roach Motel into the Biltmore in North Carolina, saying those roaches scurrying when they're the ones that build it. Give me a break. These creeps here are pathetic. They didn't design. They may be trying their best via the ancient knowledge or whatever they carry forth from the Library of Alexandria, where they burned it down for the insurance money. They have their hands on reality buttons and levers, and they have their creepy ways. But come on. They didn't design it, so it just does not, it doesn't. And the one thing that the one ring to trump all the others in this regard is how much we've learned. Most of the old guard, you wouldn't go back in time. Oh, some old guard's going to step up and say, I'd be willing to trade everything I've learned since they introduced the V thing. About 3 years ago, no old guard's going to say, I'd be willing to give up everything I've learned if we could just go back to the good old days of 2018. What good old days? What'd Billy Joel say? The good old days weren't always good and tomorrow's not as bad as it seems. In the case of these creeps, who knows? But nobody would give up their knowledge. It goes back to the job application, the part-time job application in 7-Eleven, that convenience store. That got us down when we were starting to go down a certain road, and it's been scary at times. In some cases, it's been shocking, horrific. We've lost friends. We've been, it's Annie. It's a hard knock life. It's a not milk life for us. It's a not milk. Instead of treated, we get tricked. Instead of kisses from George H.W. Bush, we get kicked. It's a hard not milk life, man. But no, in terms of all we've learned, not about the system and what Melvin P's role is and what the Fed really is. That horseshit doesn't matter. What we've learned about ourselves, nobody would give that up as an old guard. And I would question any real spiritual being that would give that up, trading it to get back the precious. You're becoming a real schmeagle if you give up all you've learned about yourself to, my precious. You want to go back there just to covet the ring and stroke it like Tommy Boy? If anybody would be willing to give back all that they've learned about reality itself and about themselves to go back to a life that was more in line with what they expect out of life before these creeps turned everything up to 10, then that's trying to get closer to reality. That's somebody maybe took a Jacob Marley chain off that's trying to bend over and put it back on. I mean, what if Jacob Marley went to visit Scrooge? Scrooge. He's like, you don't believe. I do believe in you. I must. He helped, let's just say Jacob Marley said, you don't have to go through all this horse shit, Ghost of Christmas, past, present, future. I'll just take the invisible chains off. And then Scrooge is groveling around on the ground trying to put the chains back on. That's what somebody would be doing, trying to put the chains back on. If they'd say they would give up what we've learned to go back to the life that had existed. That's trying to get back under the dragon's wing. No way. What's the evidence in the Billy Madison debater on the other side of the podium? What's the evidence that we were tricked as timeless spirits to come in here? What's the evidence? Well, there's evidence like, well, it's so hard. This life is, and even if it's not your particular life, Matt, or the modern life and David Bowie's modern life in 2020, how about the sharecropper in 1580? Or how about the person that got their head put on a stake in the Inquisition? This life is just too darn hard. Okay, it's hard. Does that on its own mean we were tricked? And someone said, well, we would have, no real spirit would ever agree to go into that. How do you know? How do you know? From the real spiritual perspective on the other side, again, it could be no different than stepping in and out of a closet for a half a second. Someone said, you're going to learn these types of lessons, whether it be one lifetime or multiples or whatever your belief set or your inner knowing tells you from past lives. It's like, would you want to learn these lessons, drop off this baggage, experience this, get this done, do this? And it's just from our perspective here spiritually, it's just in and out of a closet in a half second. Like a lot of people would be like, yeah, I'd agree to that no matter how hard it is. And we could also have been something like the way the Q is presented in Star Trek. This timeless being, it's very powerful, but they're so bored. Remember that other Q in Star Trek Voyager, the one that was trapped inside the comet or whatever, the stranger, little chubby Q. He's like, let me show you a depiction of what my world is like. And it's like just the depiction that the Earth people or the humans could understand is just like people rocking on a rocking chair in one gas station in the Arizona desert with nothing for hundreds of miles and tumbleweed, the same whipping winds, and it's just boredom and nobody doing anything new. And he's like, to you humans, we can do all these things, but when you've done all these things for whatever, let's just say trillions of years or billions of years, then even the most exciting thing to you gets mundane times a billion. And it's just, he wanted to end his immortal life, this Q on Star Trek Voyager. So who knows how bored we were? We don't know. It is hard here. It's hard out there for a pimp in the Earth system when you're trying to make the money for the rent you ain't knowing, which won an Oscar. Not joking. But you can't, because it's hard, that's the evidence we were tricked. That ain't good enough, dude. Sorry. That is not good enough. Is there other evidence? Well, Matt, you can't be Billy Madison in this debate and the other guy who wants the company. It's hard to do both, I agree. But what else would they say? I mean, what evidence that we were tricked? Well, you don't get out. How do you know? Nobody can say we get out. And there's no evidence that we don't get out. No evidence at all. It's a theory. Maybe it's something that's worth talking about from time to time. Don't take that belief set into death, as we talked about, but we don't know that. So again, I'm sorry. Based on all that I've learned and where I've come from personally, and the tremendous strides I've made and the things along the way that have helped me, new types of friends, new relationships, Belle, Bootsy, animals that have assisted me based on where I've come from. Remember, I'm the monster that, nothing that bad, okay? Nothing that bad. I've always been pretty straight-laced. But, 17 or 18 years ago, the robin lays its little eggs up. I told you, in my door, in the wreath, in my door, and I just I didn't think anything of it. I just took the nest and threw it in the woods. Even my dad, who I believe could be an NPC, he was horrified. I mean, I've told you, I'll take little bugs and spiders. I put a I put several mosquitoes out to save their life this year. And it's not just about putting little animals out and mosquitoes, but I've told you, I've done so many things, as you all have, anybody listening to me, to improve, to no longer be anywhere near what you remember yourself as 10 or 15 years ago. And because of those types of strides and how reality gives itself away to us all day long, that ain't about being tricked. If you're tricked to come in here, then what's the point of, first of all, being able to experience the strides and gains, and then reality giving you the clues all day long? Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, we were tricked. Actually, come to think of it, I take back everything I just said, throw out this entire video. It's all wrong. We were tricked. We have no chance. The strives we made is just Matt, that's just a false illusion. It's just a false sense of accomplishment that you sons of bitches put on yourself because you know you're tricked. You know you got no way out. So you got to pretend you accomplished something here. You got to attend. You got to pretend you're not the person you once were. You're just a delusional bunch of sons of bitches. You know what? I take it back. Throw out this entire video. We were tricked. And we're so screwed, I might not make another video. Thanks for listening.